In January of 1921, a 5-masted schooner was found aground off the coast of North Carolina. The ship was intact. Its cargo remained in place, but the crew was gone. No one had seen them leave, and nothing on board clearly explained where they had gone. Along the coast of North Carolina, the Atlantic Ocean meets a long chain of narrow barrier islands known as the Outer Banks. Beneath the surface of the water, shifting sandbars form shoals that move over time, creating channels that are not always where maps say they should be. Ships traveling along this stretch of coast have long navigated carefully, adjusting their course to avoid running aground in waters that can change without warning. Storms pass through the region regularly. Currents pull in different directions, and even in calm weather, the coastline presents its own quiet risks. For this reason, the area has often been referred to as the graveyard of the Atlantic. By the early 20th century, many ships had already been lost along these waters. Some were damaged in storms. Others simply ran aground. And in some cases, vessels were found long after they had been abandoned, their journeys ending without a clear explanation. One of those ships was the Carroll A. Deering, a 5-masted schooner built for carrying cargo along the Atlantic coast. In 1920, the Deering had been assigned to transport a load of coal from the United States to South America. The voyage itself was not unusual. The ship departed, completed its delivery, and began the return journey north. At some point along that return voyage, something changed. And by the time the ship was seen again, it was no longer under command. As the Carroll A. Deering made its way north along the Atlantic coast in early 1921, it followed a route that had been traveled by many ships before it. For most of its journey, there was nothing to suggest that anything was out of the ordinary. The ship had completed its delivery and was returning along familiar waters. But as it approached the coast of the United States, small details began to stand out. In late January, the Deering was sighted by the crew of a passing vessel. At a distance, the ship appeared intact. Its sails were set. It was moving under its own power. But something about it did not seem entirely right. Accounts from the sighting described a figure on board who did not appear to be the ship's captain. When spoken to, the man responded, but the interaction was brief and did not fully explain who was in command of the vessel. The ship continued on its course. Not long after, the Deering was observed again, this time by the keeper of the Cape Lookout lightship stationed off the coast of North Carolina. The lightship crew saw the schooner pass within range and noted that it appeared to be traveling without clear direction. One of the individuals on board called out to them, reporting that the ship had lost its anchors. This detail stood out. A vessel traveling without anchors, especially along that stretch of coast, would be at significant risk. The crew of the lightship attempted to communicate further, but the exchange was brief. The Deering continued moving along the coast. At the time, the reports were noted but not treated as urgent. Ships occasionally lost equipment. Crews occasionally changed, and from a distance, there was no immediate sign of distress, but the details remained. A different voice, a missing anchor, a ship that seemed to be moving, but not entirely under control. On January 31st, 1921, the Carroll A. Deering was found aground on the Diamond Shoals, just off Cape Hatteras. The ship rested at an angle against the sandbar, its hull intact, its masts still standing above the water. From a distance, there was no visible damage that explained why it had come to rest there. The sea around it was relatively calm. There was no sign of a recent storm. Rescue crews approached the vessel cautiously. The waters surrounding the shoals made access difficult, and it would take time before anyone could safely board the ship. From the outside, the Deering appeared abandoned. Its sails were still set. Its structure remained largely undisturbed. There were no signals from the crew, no movement on deck. When rescuers finally made their way aboard, they found the ship exactly as it had been left, but the crew was gone. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, no immediate indication of what had happened in the final hours before the ship ran aground. Inside, the spaces where the crew had lived and worked showed signs of recent use. Personal belongings remained, equipment was still in place, but certain items were missing. The ship's lifeboats were gone. Navigation equipment had been removed, and the captain's log, the official record of the voyage, was no longer on board. In the galley, a meal appeared to have been prepared but never finished. The ship itself remained, but the people who had been responsible for it had disappeared, and nothing left behind clearly explained why. After the Carol A. Deering was secured and examined, attention turned to understanding what had happened to the crew. Investigators reviewed the final sightings of the ship, the condition in which it had been found, and the items that were missing. But no single explanation accounted for all of it. One possibility considered was that the crew had abandoned the ship voluntarily. The missing lifeboats suggested that they had left the vessel rather than being taken from it. But abandoning a ship of that size, especially in relatively calm conditions, raised questions. There was no clear indication of immediate danger that would have required the entire crew to leave so quickly. Another possibility was mutiny. Reports of a different voice responding during the earlier sighting raised the question of whether command of the ship had changed before it reached the coast. But no direct evidence confirmed that a mutiny had taken place. There were no signs of conflict on board, no damage that suggested a struggle. Piracy was also considered. At the time, other vessels had been reported missing in the Atlantic, and there was speculation that the Deering might have encountered hostile activity. But again, the condition of the ship did not clearly support this. The cargo remained. The vessel itself had not been stripped or damaged in a way that suggested an attack. Natural causes were also examined. It was possible that the ship had lost its anchors, drifted, and eventually run aground, while the crew attempted to escape in lifeboats. But if that had been the case, there was no record of where they had gone, or why none of them had been found. Each explanation accounted for part of the story. None of them accounted for all of it. And without the ship's log, without the crew, and without any direct witnesses to what had happened aboard the vessel in its final hours, the sequence of events remained incomplete. The Carol A. Deering had been found, but its story had not. In the weeks after the Deering was discovered, the ship remained grounded along the shoals off Cape Hatteras. Its masts stood above the water, visible from a distance as it rested where it had come to a stop. The sea moved around it, currents shifted, and the coastline remained as it had always been, changing, difficult to predict, and quiet. Eventually, the ship was deemed a hazard to navigation. The remains of the vessel were destroyed, and what was left of the Deering was removed from the water. But the absence remained. The crew was never found. No confirmed record of their final movements was ever recovered. No explanation was established that could fully account for what had happened aboard the ship. Over time, the story of the Carol A. Deering became one of the many accounts associated with the waters off the Outer Banks. A ship found intact, a voyage completed, and a crew that did not return. Today, the coastline remains active with passing vessels, much as it was in the early 20th century. The shoals still shift beneath the surface. The currents still move along the coast, and ships continue to navigate the same stretch of water. From a distance, there is nothing to suggest that one of the more unusual maritime mysteries in American history unfolded there. No visible marker, no clear trace, only a place where a ship once appeared, without the people who had brought it there. That was tonight's story. You've been listening to The Midnight Box. Wherever you are, thank you for listening. Good night.